commentary YouTubers are pretty much just like Hollywood now. They've fallen into a lot of the same traps that are making the content, honestly, it's just not very good anymore. So I've really noticed this pattern picking up when it came to the conversation around Ironheart. And there's a lot of different elements to it here, but just hear me out. So I have noticed that one of the things, that Hollywood has always done here for the past decade or whatever is really just dismiss any criticisms against them. And usually the big thing is like, oh, you're an hysterophobe or whatever. And then it would always be the audience going, oh my goodness, let's have a conversation. Let's see that we're actually trying to, talk to you about valid stuff, but you're just being so dismissive. And that got a lot of people to turn away from Hollywood. And that's happening with the commentary channels and stuff now. I gotta be honest with you, I don't know how many times, I've lost track at this point, but I've seen so many people just dismissing anyone who has anything good to say about Ironheart, or if they're trying to point out hey, well, you missed this and this about it, or you didn't address so-and-so, or hey, this is a, direct bit of evidence from the show that contradicts what you said. Do you want to address this? Maybe change what you said. They just won't. And so I've seen some people being oh, well, what is it? Is it Disney resentment? I don't know. There was some term that they used. I probably should have written it down here if I was planning to talk about it, but hindsight. Anyways, I've seen some people saying well, Disney resentment, I just see that as something that automatically anyone who wants to talk, defend these movies or shows, that's your biggest thing. So you just always use that to dismiss any criticism. So I don't think what you're saying is really all that important. I was you do realize that you literally just dismissed criticism because you were just oh, I'll just lump you into this group, so let me just be oh no, you can't possibly have any valid critique and stuff. I'm well, no, why didn't you talk about it? And also, maybe this whole Disney fatigue thing is real. Let's not rule that out. If enough people are saying it, maybe that's because it's an actual pattern that is actually going on that we should actually talk about. That's worthwhile. Anyways, so I noticed the whole Disney fatigue going on, mostly because when it came to the commentary about Ironheart, I really noticed that was making a lot of the commentary channels suffer in terms of their quality. Because when I was watching the videos that were saying that they didn't like Ironheart, I don't know that I saw a single one that didn't reference other Disney projects or the comics. And it was just very strange. So I don't mean to call anyone out in some sort of negative way or to hurt them. I definitely don't want anyone to be bullied or anything like that. But there are some commentary YouTubers who are becoming, I'd say, probably more popular and stuff, but have unfortunately then fallen into some of the same problems and stuff that some other commentators are getting into, but I'll address that whole thing later. Anyways, but Greg Owen is one channel where I usually find that he's pretty level-headed in what he talks about, but when it came to the Ironheart video, I noticed that he just kept on, he referenced Disney a lot and said something along the lines of oh, well, of course it's going to be morally corrupt, because what else could we expect from Disney? And well, did you watch it, or are you just assuming that because it came from Disney, it has to be morally corrupt? If Disney could make a change for the worse, of course they can make a change for the better. And if their track record from the past recently has been that they've done stuff that's morally corrupt, well, let's zoom out and look from their past entirely. They have a record of doing really, really poorly for a while, and then changing and doing really well, and back and forth and back and forth. And so why can't we accept that maybe they're changing? Why are you now assuming anything Disney has to be bad or morally bankrupt? I've also seen so many people referencing The Acolyte and saying, oh, it's just like The Acolyte, just like The Acolyte. I'm it's really not. But yeah, it's like, how are you going to define this show based on The Acolyte? And it's kind of like, Leslie Headland was trying to find The Acolyte based on, Anakin's story, and then we're like, it's not the same thing here, and also it just wasn't written the same. It's the same thing here. And we can't define this show based on the other show. We can't define this character based on the other character. We have to define it based on what's here. And that's a big problem that I've had with the commentators as well, is that it seems like when I look at a lot of the people who are criticizing Ironheart here, they are either getting things wrong in what they're referencing, they are specifically leaving out or cutting out information, or they haven't watched it, and so they just obviously don't know what's actually going on in the show. And so what I mean by this is stuff like the Critical Drinker, I think it was for his video on the trailer, but as a joke he was like, oh, for her test she opened the door to the elevator, no one else would think of that, yeah, sure. And then someone else had pointed it out, and so I can't remember their name, but they, I guess, would deserve some credit here for pointing this out. But I didn't realize that he had done that, where he actually cut out the shot of her rewiring the elevator. So it's like, of course it's gonna look like she just opened the door, and it's stupid, but in the show it ends up being a thing showing her ingenuity. It's a character developing moment. So that's pretty important. And so it was very wrong of them to be manipulating the audience essentially into making them think it was one thing when it was another. And an edit like that is intentional. You can't not mean to do an edit like that. So another YouTuber that I usually like quite a bit, but is starting to fall into this pattern too, would be Jester Bell. She, in her first Ironheart video, where she went through the first 3 episodes when those were out, she had also done a little editing thing where she, in the scene of Riri getting expelled, she was like, oh, look at her, she looks like she's about to murder someone, and then did this edit where she, like, put red all over everything and, like, essentially tried to make it look like a horror film type of a scenario. And then I'm like, you had to make that edit afterwards, and while you could have critiqued the acting and said it's not really getting across that she's desperate, it's getting across that she's angry, instead of making a valid criticism like that, she ended up having to watch the entire show to see that clearly that acting and style is consistent with Riri starting to have a panic attack. And that's also, when she's in the suit immediately afterwards, that's what's going on with her. It's very clearly what's going on with her, is she's starting to have a panic attack, but instead she decides to make it into this big deal of Riri looks like she's trying to murder someone right now, or she's ready to, and this means she's a bad person, she's a bad character, she just gets mad, she just blames people, and she blames everyone else for her actions and stuff. I'm like, this is someone having a panic attack. Like, you shouldn't, like, in real life, you definitely wouldn't be like, oh, you're having a panic attack because you're scared? Well, you're just trying to be mean to me. That wouldn't be what we would do. Hopefully not, at least. But I'm like, you had the chance to not make that edit, and then you went ahead and you made that edit, and you made it out to be something that it wasn't in the show. And whether or not this was an intended thing where, like, she meant to go out of her way to manipulate things to make it look worse than it was and misrepresent things, because maybe she genuinely did miss Riri was having a panic attack and thought she was genuinely mad, which, again, criticizing the acting and stuff would have been fine if that was the direction to go with it. But if she just didn't realize that that was what was going on, then that means we have another problem here, which is that commentary YouTubers are so excited to get the clicks by bashing on something that they aren't stopping to actually consider what are they watching. Because in the entirety of Jester Bell's first video there, she did not address or mention that Riri has panic attacks. So I actually watched her review of the show before I watched the show, because based on the trailer, I wasn't going to watch it. and that is on Disney for making a trailer like that, and the marketing team. So yeah, I wasn't going to watch it. But then after Jesterbell had described it, I was like, you know what, I am kind of curious if it's really this bad. And then I was bored late at night, so I decided to watch it. And then I was very, very shocked after I watched it, because then I was like, oh wow, she actually completely misrepresented the show. And so at the end of episode 3, where John dies and, he and Riri have the fight, and then the suit with Natalie comes in, saves Riri, then they fly out of there, and then the door closes behind them, and then Riri later does the flyby and realizes, oh no, he actually got locked in there and stuff, and the door didn't stay open. And then, not to mention, Riri has a panic attack afterwards. Let's not forget that. The way she had described it was that Riri had purposefully ended his life, and that she had no remorse for it. That was one of the things she cited as being why Riri was such an awful character and an awful person. And when I watched that, I was like, wow, how in the world could you possibly misrepresent it this bad? It's either you're trying or you're blinded by something. And blinded by hate is really the only thing that makes sense, especially considering how many people, including her, are referencing the comics or other Disney things and saying, well, if it's all bad, it's all bad. Ironheart can't possibly be any different. Because, Riri does, like I said, she has a panic attack afterwards, which is, that for her is her body literally breaking down and not knowing how to process the weight of her actions and realize, oh, I just done something that hurt somebody. And then sure enough, in the next episode, we get to see more that she's panicking, and it's only when Natalie calms her down and says, hey, it was self-defense at this point, so you've got to focus because you're not, you didn't mean for this to happen, and you didn't actually do anything. And that is true. Riri didn't know the door was closing. She didn't know it was going to close on him and stuff. So at that point, she really had no reason to believe that he was dead. And, it's just at that point, yeah, she has remorse. At that point, she didn't make that happen. She didn't know it was going to happen. It genuinely was an accident. And, I remember in The Acolyte where I was all like, oh, the Jedi were using self-defense and soul and stuff, and that was a whole big thing. But now it's oh, in the one show where it is self-defense and they're treating it like self-defense, now that's bad? Why is it this time that they're saying, oh, it's fine for self-defense? They're now the audience is saying it's bad, and it only makes sense that they were scarred by The Acolyte, because it's either that or all of these commentary YouTubers suck at analyzing things. But I've seen a lot of them do really great commentary where they actually do pick up on things and dig deep. That's why I like to watch these commentary YouTubers. It's because I want that kind of content. So I know they can do better. So clearly it has to be something's blinding them, because what else would it be? But here's the thing. I have a background in film school. Okay, I was very lucky in high school. I had a teacher there who taught a film course. He was a part of the film industry for quite a long time, and so I was very fortunate to be able to study under him while I was in high school. So I had a year in high school with him, and then 4 years of college, and then since being... Well, I started in college, but continued afterwards to really focus in on my screenwriting. So that is my background and stuff. So I'm very used to looking at film in an academic way, where we, when you're like, oh, you have to cite your sources in a paper, we weren't having to go find some academic article on anything. We were having to cite the movies and the shows. That was what we had to do. We had to say, in this scene, or at this timestamp, or whatever, here's what it said, or here's the visual language, or the audio cue, or, whatever it was. So I am very much used to that kind of thing. And I'm very glad that I'm used to that, because bringing up evidence to support what you're saying is extremely important. And I'm not seeing commentary YouTubers doing that anymore, which makes me kind of sad, because I'm like, well, it was really cool to kind of see how you're connecting the dots, but now no one's pulling anything out from this show itself. You know, they're referencing other Disney shows or the comics, and they're not referencing the Ironheart show. Like, going back to Greg Owens, he claimed that Riri is, always using victim mentality. I'm like, when did she use victim mentality? She was saying that she needs money to make her suit, which I think is what he's trying to say is the victim mentality, but she's just saying that she just needs the money. She's not, like, they had the opportunity to say, like, oh, it's because she's a dark-skinned girl from Chicago, working in STEM, no one wants to fund anything from her or whatever. But no, they were like, hey, she screwed up, lost the funding from her school, she is hyper obsessed with getting the money and taking the easiest way to get it, and that gets her into trouble, and she ends up owning up to it. So where was the victim mentality? It wasn't there. It was in the Acolyte. It was in Leslie Headland talking about the Acolyte. It was in the lead actress, Amanda Stenberg, I think, maybe. I'm not good with names. But it was in them talking about the Acolyte, but it's not actually in Ironheart. And the thing is, I've seen so many people bringing that up of, oh, she's just all about the victim mentality and stuff. Why should we feel bad for her? Why should we feel like she's a character? Why is she ever going to grow? How is she ever going to grow when she just has the victim mentality? Where is it? You have to point it out. Because if you're just saying it's there and it's not clearly there, how in the world am I going to know? Like, it's not like saying, oh yeah, and the character builds an iron suit, and it's just like, yeah, I can assume that you're probably right about that because it's Ironheart. Like, I've seen the poster, yeah, she's got an iron suit. If you tell me she builds an iron suit in the show, I can just believe that. But if you just say, oh, she plays the victim, where? You gotta point that out. And so it's just like, there is no evidence being brought forth anymore. There is no proof. And like I said, with Jester Bell not bringing up the anxiety attacks at all, she keeps saying that Riri is a narcissist, but Riri keeps showing that she cares for other people. And it's that because of her trauma that she experienced, that she now really feels the need to make the suit to protect her and everyone she loves. So her main motivation in the show, which granted I called this in the first 3 episodes, I gotta be honest, they established this at the very beginning before she's even expelled, so anyone who missed it just wasn't paying attention, in all honesty. So, it's well established very early on that she wants to make this suit in order to protect people. That is her primary motivation. And it becomes more apparent later on, yeah, but it was still very, very much there early on. And so, for people who are just like, oh, she's a narcissist and this and that, it's like, well, you missed so much. You literally just left out the evidence. She can't be, worrying about others if she's a narcissist like that. She can't do anything to put anyone above herself if she's a narcissist. If she wanted to get out of that crime group and she was genuinely a narcissist, she probably wouldn't have cared about the fact that the hood could go after her family and friends. That's not the act of a narcissist. So, it's just like, you can only make these points against the show when you don't have any evidence that you're referencing, or you manipulate the evidence and edit it. And so at this point, it's either lie or deny. And neither one of those are very good or honest ways of doing things, And so it's just like, why would these commentary YouTubers not be bringing this stuff up? Like, it's yes, Riri is flawed. She is flawed, and they are right that she is selfish, and she's very ambitious, overly ambitious. but those are her character flaws that allow her to have an arc. And then everyone's just like, well, no, she can't have an arc because she's a narcissist and she's just never gonna grow because Disney doesn't do that with their characters. And like, again, we're denying evidence and then referencing something that isn't the show anymore. So at this point, it's just like, what's going on? Why is it that commentary YouTubers are just hating on this stuff nonstop, and they are manipulating evidence or ignoring evidence to the contrary? And it has to be, or at least for the ones that I've seen do well before, it has to be that they're just blinded by hate, because again, it's not that Ironheart was genuinely what they're saying it is, because again, there's evidence that it's not. Like, I haven't seen any of the people who hated it give solid evidence that was like undeniable, that was in the show, from the show, not from something else, that says, oh yeah, this is a flaw in the show and the reason why it's bad. And like, everyone was like, oh, it's so like, she's like, oh, Tony Stark wouldn't be Tony Stark without the money, but he built a suit in the cave. And it's like, he built a suit that didn't last long in the cave with material that came from his very expensive advanced weaponry company. He was not making it out of the cave, like he wasn't chipping away at rocks to make the iron suit. He had all that material given to him, and it was expensive, and that suit didn't last. So it was that he could, figure out how to hide the fact that he was building the suit, and that he figured out how to build the suit. That was the impressive thing. But the money, that suit was actually expensive, okay? If he didn't have his company, that suit wouldn't have existed, because his company wouldn't have existed. And then he wouldn't have made all that stuff that then allowed him to later take it and make it into a suit. And the suit that Riri is referencing is the one that was made in the fancy lab. Okay, no one thinks Iron Man and thinks of the Mark I, okay? It's the red and gold suit, okay? That's the one we're all thinking of. And yeah, it costs money. If it doesn't cost money, you can go and make one right now. Go make it. Go do it, because you said it doesn't cost money. So there you go. You can do it without money. You could do anything without money. I want you to go and buy a Ferrari now without money. Oh, you say I can't just go buy it? Okay, go make it. Go make it from scratch. And don't pay for any of the parts or any of the materials. You can't just do that. So, Riri is right in that she needs money, but then it also plays into her misbelief that she is like hyper focused on money more than ingenuity. So for her, because she is so hyper focused on the money to be able to make the suit, and she's wanting to make the suit as a way to feel like she can prevent the tragedy that happened before from happening again, which is something, again, I don't see anyone who dislikes the show bringing up. They all just say she wants it for ego, and she wants money just to want money, when it's clearly established in the first episode that's not the case. But she is enticed by easy money, which is a character flaw, that she is kind of reckless and impulsive. But it's her whole hyperfixation on money. It's not wanting money that's incorrect, because she does need money to be able to afford the material. She's not going to be given it for free. It won't come for free. Like I said, if you can do that for free, go build your Ferrari with no money. Don't spend a penny. Get yourself a Ferrari. Build yourself a Ferrari from scratch. But if there is a problem there with her character, it's an intentional one of a character flaw, any misbelief, which is another thing that I really don't get, where we got so used to Mary Sue's that now people are describing her as a Mary Sue, but then also saying that she is incredibly flawed, and that she is, she's way too ambitious, and she keeps doing these things that are getting her into trouble because of her flaws. But then they're complaining that these flaws are bad, or then they're like, oh, but Disney just treats these things like in the past they've treated their characters like those were in bad things. So, and then it's like, okay, well, great. Again, we're referencing the past. We're not referencing right now. We're not referencing Ironheart. We are not referencing from the show. We aren't providing evidence. And it gets really tiring, because then it's like, what's going on? But anyways, I'm sorry. I've ranted so much and I'm losing track of everything that I have said so far. But if I haven't said this already, there's another phenomenon that's been happening here that it's really like the main thing that clicked for me, where I was like, yeah, the commentary channels and the whole community, it's becoming the same as Hollywood. And it's that Hollywood used to have, kind of still does have, some major ways of just dismissing any and all criticism. It's usually the Easterphobe card. And, well, yeah, unfortunately, I am definitely seeing an uptick in people who genuinely are thinking that way. I have seen some, a really, really large uptick in people commenting on skin color and saying really insensitive things about the show regarding that, which not everyone, but it's a noticeable uptick in that. But anyway, but there are just, we always kind of rolled our eyes at Hollywood being like, okay, you're just like not listening to anything, because you're just immediately going to these defenses that aren't necessarily fair, and they're just assuming things, and they're not necessarily allowing for conversations. And I'm seeing that in the commentary community so much now. It's, oh, they're never gonna like you anyway, so why don't you have some, unique thoughts, or they're never gonna pick you or stuff. And it's like, okay, why can't they just express an opinion? And then it's, oh gosh, there's a quote that if I had already talked about this in this video, and now I'm struggling to remember it a second time, I'm going to start scripting out my videos again. That's what I'm gonna do. But there was a quote that people kept throwing around at me, and other people too. Like, I've seen it at so many reactions, so many people using it, where it's some quote about like, your disrespect means nothing because I have seen what you admire or whatnot. And it's like, okay, well, again, we're pulling from other shows, so it would be, if I think you like The Acolyte, why would I trust your opinion on anything? Which, again, I didn't like The Acolyte, so it's not even a fair criticism, or it doesn't apply at all. But then it also is just like, you're using just talking points that are essentially supposed to be cheat codes to just allow you to not have a conversation. That's bad. That means you are doing what Hollywood did. You are sticking yourself into an echo chamber. You are not hearing anyone else's thoughts, and you're just trying to be, nope, I am right, and I am holier than thou. And it's just really sad, because admittedly, I saw that coming, that would happen with the commentary community. I was just kind of hoping that we would kind of get away from it. Like, I was hoping that we were already on the way to get away from it, because I've seen more people talking about how this has been happening, but unfortunately I've just seen more and more commentary communities getting like this, or commentators getting like this. And it's a very sad thing, because it's like, well, there's no conversation to be had here. You're someone who will never listen to anybody else, and you're just going to have your ideas, and if anyone tries to have a conversation with you, tries to point out evidence to you, you'll ignore it. So what's the point in hanging around? There's none. There's like a list of YouTubers that I don't follow anymore, because they all got like that just too much. Like, they were just so stuck in their ways, they wouldn't listen to anybody else, they were trying to create an echo chamber. Some of them were getting very hateful, and I stopped supporting them, and I keep finding new and new commentary channels just cycling through. And at this point, the list of people that I watch compared to the list of people I no longer watch, like, there are so many commentary channels that I don't watch anymore. And most of them are the bigger channels, because it seems like the pattern is, as the channels get bigger, they just get more locked in. They do more of the echo chamber. They just ignore and deny and just get to the point of, oh, it's just, people just want to see the funny, goofy, let me bash on things. And admittedly, hey, it's cathartic to bash on TV junk and whatnot. Like, I get it. I've done that too. But yeah, I've just noticed that it's the smaller channels that seem to actually be, I guess, trying to prove their worth by actually, doing something worthwhile, I guess, by saying like, hey, I can really dig into this and I can analyze it and I can start a good conversation. And now I literally go out of my way to find the smaller channels, because at this point I'm like, I don't like most of the big channels. Most of the big channels are not worth watching anymore. And it's just, I don't know, it's something that happens. I guess the hate views can be kind of enticing, and they do, that they're making the channels do well. I'll give them that. But it's just, at this point, it's trading the money for having something worthwhile to say. And I don't really appreciate that. I guess I don't value that. No one's really looking for my permission for it, but hey, I guess I'll throw my 2 cents out there anyway. Maybe someone will see this and want to reflect on what they've been doing or saying. But anyways, I don't know, there's a lot more that I could say on it, and I might try to make another video and talk more on it, I don't know. But I just feel like we should be stopping and reevaluating what's going on with this commentary group, because I've seen so many people saying like, oh, CinemaSins and stuff ruined, commentary, or no, they said they ruined reviews. And I'm like, well, here's the thing, there's a difference between a commentary and a review. And the review should definitely be more objective and a bit more professional, and the commentary is just throw your 2 cents out there. And at this point, maybe they ruined the commentary community. Maybe they did. I don't know. And at this point, though, I think it's kind of up to each individual commentator to decide what they want to engage in or not. Because I know that it's okay if you follow the trend, you follow the oh goodness, I can't say that word, algorithm, then you get the views and stuff. And I get that to some degree. But then also, hey, you know what? If they feel like they don't like how Riri Williams supposedly was blaming everyone else for stuff, then maybe it's time for the commentary community to stop playing victim and being reactionary to Hollywood and start taking some accountability for the fact that we've ruined our own community.